Welcome everyone. Michael Rosmer here with Offshore Citizen. We are here once again. We're in Bulgaria and the weather is a little bit chilly, so we decided, hey, you know what? The heck, we'll film a few more videos today than we normally would. All right, so we're going to talk today about unofficial citizenship programs, which I think is something that I certainly, before I knew about it, probably would have been interested in, right? Because, you're always interested in knowing, like, okay, what are the loopholes? What are the tricks? What are the, ways that you can navigate the system to get the things that other people can't get, to get something better than other people can get. It makes you feel special, right? So here is kind of the nature of the dynamic in terms of citizenships. There's, on the one hand, naturalization, which is what most people go through if they're able to qualify for it, right? This is where you move to another country, you live there for a certain number of years, pretty much everywhere in the world a minimum of 5. There's some exceptions if you get married and things like this, but generally 5 years. Up to 20 years, and in some cases it's impossible to get their citizenship, but sometime within there you would then be able to allowed to apply, and usually there's a process on top of that. So usually you're talking about 6 to 22 years in order to get the citizenship through naturalization, right? It's a long process, and often you don't have the right to live there anyway, so to go through their process is a problem, right? The second alternative is what we call citizenship by investment schemes, right? Citizenship by investment is really citizenship by donation, okay? You are going to be giving some money to buy a passport quickly, all right? So you're probably gonna get it in somewhere between 3 months to a year, right? Depending on where it is. Now, there's a couple occasions where it could be longer than that, in which case I'm kind of like, is it really that good? But anyway, bottom line is, this is the situation. Okay, so within the world of citizenship by investment or citizenship by donation, and by the way, as I said, they call them citizenship by investment pretty much all the time, even though most of the time they're citizenship by donation. When they do a citizenship by investment program, maybe you can buy a property, but the property is radically overpriced, right? It has to be a government approved property. You're still gonna have to pay a bunch of fees, but you're paying an inflated price, and that's how they're basically paying for it. That's how it's the difference. Okay, so one way or another, you're buying a citizenship. Perfect, great, totally legit. Very useful for certain people, right? So you wanted to give up your US citizenship and you need a citizenship, you're not ready to go and sit in another country for 5 years before you can do that. Well, buy a passport somewhere, You have it in, let's say, 6 months, now you can renounce, you have a backup, you're good. Maybe you get a couple backups, right? Very, very clear. So in the world of citizenship by investments, there are about 10 major official programs, okay? There's 5 in the Caribbean. This is Grenada, Nevis and St. Kitts, St. Lucia, Antigua, and Dominica, okay? Then there's in the South Pacific, there's Vanuatu. In Eastern Europe, you've got Moldova, you've got Montenegro, there's Turkey. Then there's Cyprus and Malta are the 2 official programs in the EU. There's some unofficial programs in the EU as well. And, in a bunch of ways, those are better, right? So this brings us to the subject of unofficial programs. So although there are these places that have these official programs, there are 5 to 10 countries that I know of, and probably a bunch that I don't know of, where you can get an unofficial an unofficial program, right? It's an official citizenship. It's a real citizenship, right? This is not, you're not getting a fake citizenship or something like that. It's no, on some basis, you are able to qualify for a real citizenship there very quickly within, let's call it a month to 6 months, depending on where it is. And you have it. You've got your real legitimate citizenship. You've got your naturalization card. You can renew your citizenship. You go to the passport office. You get your all this stuff, right? So how does that work? Well, in a bunch of countries in the world, there are either provisions of law or there are people in power who have sufficient power in order to make this happen for you, okay? And the most common example that you're gonna see this is people who have some sort of benefit to the country. So you'll really commonly, probably the most common time that you would hear about it is when there's some sort of athlete involved, right? So maybe there's a rule where, okay, in order for this athlete to compete for a country in the Olympics, they have to be a citizen, so we're going to grant them a citizenship, right? And there's provisions in their law that they can legitimately do that, right? However, it's not restricted to them. If they have that provision in law, then they can probably do it for scientists. They can probably do it for artists. They can probably do it for, various different people who have an impact in their country, okay? And now, it doesn't mean that anyone can get it. It's not there's not an official program, right? You can't go and sign up to be like, hey, give it to me because of this. No, you have to somehow have a path to get there. And this usually involves some sort of connections in the government, which are combined with something that you are doing, right? That's usually the way that it works. So here's an example, a very good citizenship that is impossible to get, right? So UAE, it's in normal circumstances impossible to get. Under their law, you can never naturalize based on your number of years living there. It doesn't matter if you live there for 50 years, you can never get UAE citizenship. However, the ruler of UAE has the power to grant their citizenship to whoever he wants, right? No problems. So now, are you gonna be able to do that? Probably not, right? Because they're very wealthy, the influence that they would have, they would need to have some reason that they like you. So a common reason is, again, there's some athlete or something, right? But it doesn't have to be. You could look at in Serbia, right? In Serbia, there's no official program. However, it is entirely possible to get citizenship in Serbia if you're doing some sort of, significant investment or something like that, okay? So basically the way that it would work is they're trying to raise capital for some project, for example, Belgrade waterfront, maybe the people who did that development are looking for key investors to come in. They say, hey, look, this is good for the country. They know the people in the government, and they make a deal where they say, okay, if somebody invests X amount of dollars, we'll give them a passport, we'll give them a citizenship, right? That would be an example. So another good example is in Montenegro. For years, so Montenegro now has an official program, right? However, that's very new. And for years before that, it was possible to get citizenship in Montenegro, okay? Montenegro is a small country. The ruling party is very strong. The head of Montenegro has been in power since for 25 years or something like that. And, they're involved in the various different projects that take place. And so if you were contributing to one of these projects, you could make a deal, right? You could say, okay, well, I'm interested in coming and, investing here, but, I'd really like the citizenship. Probably the person who's doing a major project has connections with them. They say, oh, let me see, okay, we made a deal that if you do this, then you can get the citizenship, right? It's totally legit, totally fine. And it's a way to get access to areas that you couldn't normally get. So pretty much anything, not everything, but a lot of different cases that aren't normally available are available this way. So why would somebody be interested in these? Well, as I said, I'm a big fan of unofficial programs because first of all, unofficial programs sometimes allow you to get something quicker and easier. So I'll give you an example. There's a country in Eastern Europe. They have an official program that's pretty easy to go through. It's not a citizenship by investment program. It's just a naturalization program. Basically, you can invest, and then after a certain period of time of living there, or being a resident there, you can qualify for their citizenship. But it's not so straightforward that, okay, I automatically get it, right? There's a citizenship committee you still have to go through. Well, you could use unofficial means where basically you'd make some sort of donation, some sort of contribution to the country, etc., and that would tilt it so that, okay, now you can get this citizenship, whereas normally maybe you couldn't, or you could get it faster or something like this, right? So that's another example. Sometimes there's programs that are cheaper. So the official programs, basically by the time you do donations and fees, start at $120,000, $130,000 and up, right? And so, that's normally the cheapest you can do. Well, there's unofficial programs that are cheaper than that, right? So you can potentially save money. Maybe you want to gain access to the EU. Well, in addition, okay, there's Cyprus and there's Malta, official programs. They're pretty high barrier to entry. You for a much more reasonable cost, or else to a different access, maybe an easier access, whatever. There are unofficial programs that you can gain access to the EU in. Fantastic, right? So those are situations. What else is there that's out there? Maybe you're in a situation where you want access to a country that they don't have a program. Well, maybe they have a program that's unofficial, right? And so, yeah, these are things that they give you an advantage. What's another advantage? Well, when you have some of these really well-known, especially tiny country citizenship by investment programs, right? So for example, Dominica, right? Dominica's had a program for a lot of years, and so it's pretty well known as a place that sells passports, right? So if you have a Dominica passport, you walk into your Swiss banker and you're like, here's my identifying document. In today's day and age of KYC and AML and reporting and all this kind of stuff, what's that person likely to say? They're likely to say, okay, great, where's your other passport, right? Now, to be fair, you could have legitimately, say, renounced your other citizenship, and that's the only one, but a good chance that they would ask for that today. Whereas if you have one of these unofficial programs, they're probably not going to ask, because why would they think that you wouldn't have that, right? So from that standpoint, it's useful. So these are things that are really important to know. So what are some important things to know? First of all, it's important to note that these are legitimate citizenships, right? This is not a fake citizenship. This is not something like that. Number two is that sometimes, not always, in fact, rarely, I should specify that this is rarely, but sometimes this can get you options that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise. Maybe you can get something faster, maybe you can get it cheaper, maybe you can get it in a place that you wouldn't normally be able to get it. So all useful, right? Number three is these programs are something that they come and they go, right? They're not always available. It's not like you can go and sign up. There's not an official track. They don't announce, hey, this is going away, because they never announced that it was there to begin with, right? It's some provision in law that allows them to do this. And sometimes, you'll have cases where it's been kind of a loophole in the law. So about 5 years ago, I'm told, it was very easy to get citizenship in Bulgaria, right? There was ways of navigating that people could get citizenship cheap and easy, and now that's not the case anymore. They've more or less closed all of that up, and it's now quite difficult to get citizenship in Bulgaria. However, the point is there was a point in time where that was the case. And so, if you happen to be fortunate enough that you're in that situation, obviously, do your due diligence and things like this. But if you're looking for a citizenship, it is worth considering some of these unofficial programs, because they can sometimes get you a lot more freedom in the world than you would otherwise be able to get. And by the way, usually you're still gonna have to go through some due diligence process. It's not usually that this is so straightforward as saying, okay, they're just gonna give it to us. Usually there's some sort of factor. And if you don't go through that, if there isn't some review, like there was a case, so they gave away lots of citizenships in Bulgaria a number of years ago, right? In a couple cases where they let in somebody who was like a Russian oligarch, who had a known criminal past and things like this, they ended up taking that person's citizenship away, right? So don't be in a situation where you're like, oh, okay, great, this is a get out of jail free card or something. No, that's not the idea. The idea is just that sometimes there's an option for you that might give you greater flexibility. Certainly for people, who want, maybe you're limited on budget, right? So you want to move to the EU and, you can't afford 650,000 euros to Malta. Or, you want to get a second citizenship to get out of your country. Maybe you're somebody you're from Nigeria and your passport is horrible and you need something, but you can't afford $130,000. Well, maybe there's another option for you, right? And it's worth looking into. So anyway, if you want to know more, contact us. I hope you're doing, I hope you're having a great future, and we're going to look forward to seeing you on the next video.